Next, which of the statements below are true? So we've got the fixed cost per unit will increase as production increases. That is not a true statement. So the fixed cost per unit will actually decrease as production increases. These type of questions, always look out for whether you're dealing with a total cost or whether you're dealing with the unit cost. We know that the total fixed cost will always be the same regardless of the amount of units produced. However, that total cost is split over the amount of units produced. So when you're looking at that from a per unit point of view, the more units that have been produced, the more that fixed cost has been spread over those units. Okay, so as units increase, the actual fixed cost per unit will decrease. So that's a false statement there. Next one, variable cost per unit will remain the same as production increases. That is correct. So again, looking at the unit cost itself there, that's what the variable costs are per unit. Okay, so the direct costs. If it costs £10 to make one chair, it still costs £10 to make 100 chairs, etc. But it will be the total cost that increases as production increases. The actual variable cost per unit remains the same. The total fixed cost per unit will increase if production decreases. And this one is also true. Okay, so again, the total fixed cost per unit. Okay, so looking at the fixed cost per unit. If production decreases, so less units are being made, then more of that fixed cost is being allocated per unit. Okay, so if £100 was the fixed cost spread over 10 units, if production decreased and there was only 1 unit produced, all of that fixed cost would get allocated to 1 unit. So the cost per unit would increase as that production decreases. And again, it's just looking at those key points within there to note whether you're dealing with a total cost or a per unit cost. And fixed costs increase as production increases. Okay, that will be relating to the fixed cost itself, so the total fixed cost, and that remains the same no matter what. Okay, no matter how many units are produced, fixed costs are always the same total. Therefore, that statement is not true. Okay. So looking at the next question here, Painters Limited wish to know how fixed costs, variable costs, total costs and unit costs behave at different levels of production. You are told that fixed costs are £18,000 and variable costs are £3.50 per unit. Complete the table below, calculating unit costs to 2 decimal places. So when you're tackling these type of questions, the best place to start is with the fixed costs. So we're told that fixed costs are £18,000. Okay, and we know that our fixed costs are the same regardless of the units that are produced. Okay, so for all of these units produced, the fixed cost is going to be 18,000. Okay, we know that that's the same for each level of output. However, what we do know is that variable costs are £3.50 per unit. So we're going to have to multiply the per unit cost by the amount of units that have been produced. And that will give us our total variable costs. So looking at the first one, 12,000 units times by £3.50 per unit should give you variable cost of 42,000. Next, 15,000 units times £3.50. That should give you 52,500. And then lastly, 20,000 units times £3.50 should give you 70,000 there. Okay, so you can see total fixed costs are the same, but obviously the total variable cost increases the more units are produced. Okay, we can then add our fixed and variable costs together to get a total cost. So it will be 60,000 for 12,000 units. The total cost will be 70,500 for 15,000 units, and then for 20,000 units the total cost will be £88,000. £88,000. Next, we then need to look at creating a unit cost for each of those levels of output. So we know that the total cost for 12,000 units is 60,000. Okay, if we divide that by 12,000 units, that will give us our unit cost, which should be £5. Note that we have to add these into 2 decimal places, so don't forget to put 00 if you have to. Then we can do 70,500, and we can divide that by 15,000 units, and that should give you a unit cost of £4.70. And then finally 88,000 divided by 20,000 units should give you a unit cost of £4.40. So notice that with the more units that are produced, the less that the unit cost is. And that's because the fixed costs are being spread over more units. So the unit cost will always slightly decrease due to that fixed element there. We know that the variable cost is £3.50 per unit regardless. It's just that fixed element being spread over more units. Okay. So number 9, if we produce 8,000 units, have a total cost of 42,500 with fixed costs of 12,500, what is the variable cost per unit? So we're going to have to maybe break this down into 2 stages here. So we know that the total cost is 42,500. Okay, that's our total cost there. What we've got here, what that total cost contains, is a fixed element and a total variable cost element. So if we deduct our fixed costs of 12,500, then what we should have is £30,000, which is the total variable cost. Okay? So the total variable cost equals £30,000. Now that we have that £30,000, we know that 8,000 units have been produced. So we can divide that figure, which should give you £3.75 per unit. Okay? And you can always work that in reverse just to double check your method. So £3.75 per unit times by the 8,000 units, okay, is going to bring you back to that 30,000 total variable cost. And then if you add the fixed cost of 12,500, okay, that will give you 42,500 total cost, which matches up to the information we had above. Okay, so you can always double check your workings if you want to go backwards. That's fine to do that. But yeah, that's how we tackle this question here. Just break it down into 2 stages and we should be able to work that out. And then finally, looking at the last question here, so similar to one that we've already done, but Grading Limited are looking at increasing output and wish to know how fixed costs, variable costs, total costs and unit costs behave at different levels of production. You are told that fixed costs are £90,000 and variable costs are £12 per unit. Complete the table below, calculating unit costs to 2 decimal places. Okay. So again, start with the fixed costs here. We've got £90,000 in each of those. Total fixed cost will always be the same regardless of the levels of output. Then we need to look at working out our variable costs. So we know that our variable costs are £12 per unit. So 15,000 units times by £12 per unit should give you total variable costs of 180,000. Same again for the next one. 25,000 times 12 should give you £300,000 for the variable costs. And then lastly, 40,000 times 12 should give you total variable costs of £480,000. We can then add those two together to get our total cost. So 270,000, we should then have 390,000, and then finally 570,000. And then next we take those total costs, divide it by the level of output. So in this first one, 15,000 units. So the first one should give you £18 per unit. The second one, so we do 390,000 divided by 25,000 units. That should give you £15.60. And then finally 570,000 divided by 40,000 units should give you £14.25. And again, notice that the unit cost is decreasing as the amount of units are being increased, and that's just because those fixed costs are spread over more units, so the cost per unit slightly decreases each time. Okay, so that covers everything within this session today. The key topic of this one, I'd say, is definitely the manufacturing account. Really make sure that you have some practice working through that so you can get familiar with the flow of that. Okay, think about all of the different types of costs that you're going to be dealing with and how that's constructed. Okay, and remembering those calculations will really help you in that full process. Okay, and then of course looking at fixed and variable costs. Okay, always just look out for whether you're dealing with a total or a unit cost. That will typically help you identify the behavior of the costs you're dealing with.
Hi there, and thank you for watching the video. If you're new here and passionate about everything accounting, then don't forget to subscribe and give us a follow. We're proud to deliver the best standard of support to our students. We have bespoke study materials, exclusive AAT unit videos, award-winning tutors and so much more. Make sure to follow us on our social platforms to stay up to date with what we're working on. Thank you.